Political tensions, two words that describe with clearness the situation of Europe and Asia after World War II ended.
The brutal rivalry had conflict, beginning a competitive ideas of how to compare, seek for peace, for
The United States and the Soviet Union, also known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics or the USSR, fought together as allies against the Axis powers after the impressive betrayal of Hitler in the Non-Aggression Pact. However, the relationships between nations began to grow into complicated ones since post-war tensions began to emerge.
I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan.
When World War II was officially over after Japan was bombed by the three allies, they decided to establish a new order. The USSR would be in charge of Eastern Europe. For this reason, they used these countries as buffers for protecting from any attack from the West. With this, the alliance between the US, Britain, and the USSR started deteriorating. On one hand, the Americans were completely aware of Soviet communism and its great expansions led by the dictator Joseph Stalin. On the other hand, the Soviets started resenting the Americans since they refused to treat the USSR as a part of the international community and as a global power. They also had this resentment because, in World War II, the Americans remained safely overseas while the Soviets were actually fighting and therefore millions of civilians died. Even though the United States didn't trust Russia, the big problem was fear of Soviet expansionism. Many Americans feared that, at one point, the USSR would take complete control of European policy. Focusing on the USSR, the big problem for them was American officials' bellicose rhetoric because of arms buildup. This meant that they showed a clear interest to fight. In 1948, the NATO was established. NATO was an alliance made by the US and other 11 Western nations with the goal of stopping communist expansion. With this, the USSR got completely sure that both countries aimed to destroy them, so this is known as the start of the Cold War. Stalin now wanted to take advantage of the poverty of countries affected by World War II. But before they could, the US sent $12 billion for economic recovery. With this, a battle of propaganda for political expansionism and global superiority started between both powers, the US on the democratic and capitalist side, and the Soviets on the communist side. Space would also be a dramatic arena for this competition, as each one thought the best technology they had, the more power they showed. Because of this, a massive development of nuclear weapons took place. When one of both countries developed, the other, in some way, reached their power to maintain balance. This unregulated use of nuclear power was first seen in the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but most importantly, it awarded the Soviets that the US was more developed regarding weapons than them. This caused the acceleration of their nuclear programs, so everyone knew that if a major war broke out between both superpowers, it would be more destructive than anyone could imagine. Moreover, Stalin died by a cerebral hemorrhage, and Nikita Khrushchev, the new leader, started a process of de-Stalinization. Statues of Stalin were taken down, Stalingrad was renamed to Volgograd, and he allowed greater freedom of expression in the USSR. The USSR was still superior in the space race, so they launched the first satellite and sent the first man to space. The advantage of the USSR was clear. They were winning the race. Tensions increased even more when both sides upgraded their atomic bombs into hydrogen bombs, and after Western Germany joined NATO in 1955, Khrushchev set up the Warsaw Pact, which had the aim of strengthening military ties between the USSR and its buffer states for protection. Meanwhile, in the USSR, All the money was directed to the improvement of technology, so, compared to the West, the East didn't have the same life quality. Because of this, Eastern civilians moved to the West, causing a decrease in the economy since workers were lost. For stopping this, Khrushchev made a big wall, also known as the Berlin Wall, between West and East Berlin, causing millions of deaths by failed attempts of crossing the wall. Finally, China broke its alliance with the USSR because they wanted to become a world power. And also, other countries broke their alliances with any of both superpowers to remain neutral by creating the Non-Aligned Movement in 1961.